Hey there, lovebirds, and welcome to an all-new Valentine's edition of The Joe Show. I hope you had a super week on the heels of that exciting overtime game on Sunday, breaking the record for most viewed TV show ever, just ahead of the ratings on this program. So it's time to regain our throne at #1 on the charts, with must-see content packing more punch than Will Smith at the Oscars, and better aim than Cupid's bow and arrow, because this is my love story, and Romeo's Got a Round Ball. Episode 6 starts now. Progressive journey for the Wynford boys basketball program under third-year head coach Mike Smith, who has increased the program's win total each season wearing royal blue. Smith's bunch got off to a great start in 2023 with wins in 9 of their first 10 matchups, but are now facing some turmoil in the season's second half. I caught up with the Royals leader to find out about his coaching philosophy and influences. Here's a look at our one-on-one conversation. Okay, we're here with Coach Mike Smith of the Wynford Royals. In this segment, Coach, we like to kind of just allow people to find out a little bit about the coaches in here. So, you played here at Wynford, and kind of the start of maybe the glory years of Wynford basketball. So, one of the first things though we like to find out is kind of like your coaching journey. Like where'd you start at, and how did you get to this point of being the head coach of the Wynford Royals?
I'd probably go back to sitting in a psychology class that Rob Sheldon taught and I took in high school, and I think that's where he kind of let me do things in the classroom, and I think he thought I might someday want to be a coach, and kind of pushed that on me a little bit. Playing for him, I think that's where it all started, my thoughts of coaching. Once I got out of college, we ended up in Toledo, Ohio. My wife worked in Toledo at the time, and when we married, we went up there. I ended up at Cardinal Stritch. Okay. Really good Catholic, school. Had some success here in the last few years. When we were there, we played in the Toledo City League, so I got my eyes open early.
That's where the Toledo City League was loaded.
Yes, and we were a small school, obviously, in that league. So I got a 23-year-old JV coach going to Toledo Scott, and Toledo Start, and all the Woodward and all the places that were probably not the best place for me, and especially my wife, who went to the games, to sit at. But it was a really great experience for me. I was there for about 5 years. Then we moved back here to get closer to home. Ended up at Seneca East for a few years. Did some junior high. Didn't really do any high school. Got here then and helped Tim Ersman, with the junior high. I was kind of in charge of the junior high program at the time then, and got to coach my son in junior high. Again, I really never thought about, getting back into the high school level. And then when Steve Moore got the job, asked me to come help again, and helped him for 3 or 4 years as varsity assistant, and then got the head coaching job. So it's kind of a weird scenario. I was old when I got the first head coaching job, but kind of glad the way I did it. I took off some years and watched my kids grow up, so I was in and out of coaching a lot, and I think I wouldn't change it. I got to see them grow up and wasn't away from them, so it's worked out pretty well.
I think as everybody kind of takes over a basketball program, coach kind of has a philosophy. So what would you say your philosophy of coaching is?
I think if you watch us play, it's pretty evident that we like to play fast. Lots of ball pressure, mostly through presses. Probably our three-quarter trap is our forte. We got a lot of length. I don't know if that's every year we would do that. It just depends. I think real good coaches adapt sort of to what they have, especially high school coaches, because you're never going to have the same team every year. I've been lucky to have most of these guys for 3 years now, so we've been able to kind of build upon, what we started. The first year that we took over, I would say that maybe I ran things that we shouldn't have, but I knew what was coming up, so we kind of instilled that first year. We kind of took our lumps, but I knew the younger kids would, benefit from that. So I think you're seeing the benefits now after, last year we won 13. After winning 5 the first year and won 13, I would hope we get to pass 13 this year. So.
One of the other things I think that's always interesting with coaches is, I remember like when I started coaching, it was kind of the Bob night, theory, and then you kind of follow some different guys. So you already mentioned Rob was kind of an influence, but if you maybe mention whether it's high school coaches, college coaches, pros, or even in any sport, are there any kind of coaches that maybe have influenced like that philosophy or how you want to play?
Yeah, I think just starting with Rob, the early years of Rob, because Rob changed his philosophy. I think as he got older, they went more defensive minded and slowed the game down a little bit. But when I played, it was helter-skelter up and down. We pressed, we pushed the ball. We were the running Royals back then.
Yep.
We were scoring 75 points a game without the three-point line back then. That's a lot of points. Then, luckily enough, I went to college at Ohio Wesleyan, and our coach Gene Mahaffey played the same style. So I've grown up in this style.
Gene Mahaffey would be like the guy that taught the Euro step before the Euro step was ever popular.
Yes, he really pushed that, and people thought he was nuts, but he was actually right.
Yes, he was.
And nobody would believe him when he was teaching that, but we had to learn that too. That was one of the rules. We had to learn his new steps. But yeah, I think I've just been around that a lot, and I feel comfortable in that situation. I don't know, maybe I'm stubborn, maybe I don't know any better, maybe that's...
Well, I think one of the things is as a coach, you got to kind of feel comfortable with what you do, and you're going to stress what's important to you, and that's what's going to be important to your basketball team.
I've always been told to be yourself, and that's really me. And I feel, like you said, I feel the most comfortable probably teaching that. And I think our kids, especially the last 2 years that people have watched us, I think we do it pretty well. Maybe we're not the greatest half-court defensive team, but a lot of times we don't need that. When we get to tournament time, as we've talked about this, we're going to have to play. We're going to have to sit down and play man-to-man. It's going to have to happen. So we've been working on that over the last few weeks and trying to get better at that, because it's something that's going to have to happen.
So you talked about your coaching journey, and now you're the varsity coach here at Wynford. What's like the favorite part of coaching that you've experienced over your years?
I think just, hit locker room interaction with kids. We have a rule that we started 3 years ago with the kids that everybody has to say something positive when they leave. They either fist pump or, high five, say goodbye to each other. And we've had times, I tell this story a lot, I've had kids that have walked out into the parking lot to leave and said, oh my gosh, I forgot to say something to coach. Walked all the way back in just to fist pump. It's those relationships, obviously, that you build with the kids. And just getting to know them on a human level, I guess, instead of just a basketball level. That's the exciting part. And then they come back.
Yep.
You have kids come back and still talk to you and want to know what's going on and asking you how the programs, how things are going. And it's just exciting to build those relationships, I think.
Let's flip it though. What's the least
I don't really enjoy this right here. I'm not the most, I don't know. I'm not the most outgoing probably.
Hey, and these guys are taking me out of my comfort zone too, so I was much like you.
Yes, I don't like to be in the limelight. This isn't for me. I tell my kids, this is your team. This is not my team. I'm just like the captain of the ship, keeping us afloat. And I don't think it should be about us as coaches. We're not out there playing. It's about the kids.
So, Mike, we appreciate you taking time out, and we wish you guys in the Wynford world the best of luck the rest of the way.
Appreciate it, you guys coming.
All right, thanks.
The Royals dropped a tight game last night against Northmor, making them 4-6 over their last 10 outings. Smith and the gang will host N10 leading Colonel Crawford on Friday, looking to build some momentum ahead of the Division III state tournament. Last week I gave you 10 nominees to consider for Coach B's Ballers, and after a fan vote, here's your winner from January 31st through February the 6th. Congratulations to Bucyrus's Addison Kemery, who dropped 22 points and a 3-pack of triples. You are the fan vote winner of Coach B's Ballers. Now it's time to meet this week's nominees for Coach B's Ballers. Here comes the best individual performances captured by our cameras over the last 7 days. First nominee is Grace Walton of the Upper Sandusky Rams. This junior guard scored 25 of her team's total 37 points in the Rams' win last Saturday against Buckeye Central. Grace made 4 threes, including a game-winning 3 with 5 seconds. She continues to lead the N10 in scoring, assists, steals, and three-point shooting percentage as she shoots 46% from behind the arc. The Rams are currently 15-6 and will wrap up the regular season on Saturday at Cary, who sits on top of the N10. Upper will play in the sectional final on Saturday, February the 24th, against the winner of Willard and Edison. Our second nominee is Logan Toms of the Lucas Cubs. This senior scored 28 points, 17 of which came in the second half, as the Cubs snapped Mansfield Christian's 9-game winning streak with a 61-58 win in the Cub Cave. After last night's game versus Clear Fork, Logan is within 4 points of becoming the all-time leading scorer in Lucas basketball history. Saturday's victory allowed Lucas to clinch its 6th straight Mid-Buckeye Conference title. The Cubs are currently 15-4 with 3 games left in the regular season. Lucas was the number 3 seed in their Division IV district and will start tournament play on Wednesday, February 28, when they host Crestline. Our third nominee is Max Dawson of the Willard Crimson Flashes. This Ashland University-bound senior was dominant in the Flashes' win at Lucas on Saturday. Max scored 29 points in their 72-55 victory at the Cub Cave, as the Flashes are 9-0 on the road this season. Max and his teammates travel to Margaretta this Friday to try and grab a share of the SBC Bay Division title. The Flashes are currently 7-1 in league play, with Margaretta being undefeated at 8-0. Overall, the Flashes stand at 16-3, and they will wrap up their regular season next week with home games against Vermilion and Shelby. Our fourth nominee is Bailey Nelson of the Mansfield Christian Flames. This freshman forward owned the lane inside the furnace as she had a career-high scoring night with 24 points in the Flash's 53-19 win over the Lucas Cubs. Bailey and her teammates will wrap up the regular season this week and will begin tournament play as the number 4 seed in the Division IV Northwest District, when they play the winner of Monroeville and Plymouth on Saturday, February 24th, at home. Our fifth nominee is Warren Garrison of the Cardington Pirates. This junior guard navigated the pirate ship through the rival waters of Mount Gilead as he scored 21 points with 3 threes in Cardington's win over the Indians on Saturday night. The Pirates finish at 9-3 in the KMAC and are currently 14-7 on the season after a loss to Columbus Kip on Monday. Cardington will wrap up its regular season tomorrow night when they host Delaware Christian. They begin tournament play on Tuesday, February the 27th, when they host Horizon Science Academy. Our sixth nominee is Serena Ramsey of the Shelby Whippets. This junior forward scored 23 points and went 5 of 6 from the free throw line as the Whippets went on the road and knocked off Pleasant to clinch their 6th consecutive MOAC championship. Shelby is currently 16-5 overall and will wrap up their regular season on Thursday when they host Willard. The Whippets will begin their tournament run in the Division II district when they host Rossford next Thursday. Our 7th nominee is Gavin Toombs of the Fredericktown Freddies. This sophomore did it all in the Freddies' 63-57 win over Northmor last Friday night. He proved why he's one of the leading scorers and rebounders in the KMAC, as he scored 19 points to help his team clinch a share of the KMAC crown. The Freddies have 3 games left in their regular season as they host Liberty Union on Friday, travel to Newark Catholic next Wednesday, and then finish at home against Utica on Friday. Fredericktown will start tournament play on the road as they travel to Fairbanks on Tuesday, February the 21st. Our 8th nominee is Aiden Culler of the Lucas Cubs. This humble senior forward scored a career-high 30 points in the Cubs' 71-57 win over Clear Fork in the Cub Cave last night. Aiden played an all-around outstanding game as he made 3 threes, was dominant on the glass, and dished out several assists. The Cubs now stand at 15-4 for the season and will wrap up their season with home games against Crestline and Plymouth this weekend, and then travel to Ontario next Saturday night for their season finale. The Cubs will then host Crestline again on Wednesday, February the 27th to open tournament play. Our 9th nominee is Brock Rensel of the Mansfield Christian Flames. This senior guard had a career-best scoring night as he scored 20 points in the Flames' 84-43 domination of Fredericktown in the Furnace last night. The Flames bounced back from their loss at Lucas on Friday night. Brock started this game in perfect fashion as he went 5 of 5 from the field, which included 4 threes. The Flames currently are 16-4 on the season and will be home versus Kidron Central Christian on Friday, then home again on Tuesday against New London. They will then host New London again on Wednesday, February the 28th in the first round of the Division IV District Tournament. Our 10th nominee is Reuben Holmes of the Columbus Kip Jaguars. This freshman forward helped the Jaguars race past the Centerburg Trojans last night. Reuben scored 22 points, which included an impressive dunk, as the Jaguars erased a 16-point deficit in the second half to down Centerburg. Kip will open tournament play in the Division III Central District when they host Liberty Union on Tuesday, February the 27th. We'll post these nominees for a fan vote tomorrow to determine which of my ballers had the best performance of the week. After a short commercial break, I'll be joined by award-winning sports writer Jake Furr. More Joe Show will return soon. Well, we'd like to welcome Jake Furr, sports writer for the Mansfield News Journal and good friend of mine and also of the O-Reach Report. So Jake, over the past few weeks, we've had some of my assistant coaches come in. We've had Greg Collins, Steve Gray, and Tom Foster. And then last week we brought Charlie Scott in as an official. And I think it's always interesting to hear, even in interviews I do with coaches for each week, is kind of like what inspired them to be a coach, and then like with Charlie, what inspired you to be official, and then kind of that journey to where you're at now. So I guess maybe turn it over to you and let you talk a little about how you had an interest in becoming a sports writer, and then kind of the journey of how you became a writer here for the Mansfield News Journal.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of started as a young age. I was a little kid. My bedroom wall would have all kinds of newspaper clippings. I really didn't like put those two together until I really started thinking about it, but just, I had newspaper clippings of, I grew up in Plymouth, so the Big Red were really good back in like the, late 90s. So I had, all those things plastered all over my wall. I read it was the Plymouth Advertiser back then. Mm-hmm. It's kind of defunct now. It's not a paper anymore, but had those all over my wall, and just, I always looked forward to seeing those pictures and reading those stories when I was a kid. And I even had a picture of Benji Hall on one of my walls too. From the News Journal. His neighbor my neighbor was his uncle and his cousin, so I kind of grew up with those guys and knew them from
glad Benji decided to move from Plymouth to Ontario.
Yeah. I don't know where that jurisdiction line, where that kind of butted up.
All I know is this, and I really never knew about that until Denny Bartlett was at Madison, and I think Benji maybe moved when he was like in 5th grade or 6th grade. And Denny Bartlett, I think we played, he goes, "Hey, you got a kid coming in that's going to be an all-Ohio player." And I was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." Denny, he goes, "No, Joe, this kid's going to be really good."
Yeah.
Well, and he was.
Yeah, he was something else. And, and just kind of loving the game of basketball, really, that's kind of what got me into the love of sports writing. I still cover football, baseball, softball, kind of all those sports, but, this is the time of year that I absolutely love. And, I went to school. I went to high school and was kind of on like that school newspaper. We really didn't do a whole lot in those classes. As much of me and my friends over in the corner just playing cards, kind of.
Good euchre players?
Yeah. We played some euchre, played a bunch of different games and stuff. And then I just kind of, I was a player in high school. And my sophomore year, I was interviewed by Rob McCurdy after one of our district championship wins. And I was just like, man, that's really cool. For me, it just felt really cool to kind of be in the paper. I was in the paper, and then I was like, you know what, that guy kind of has a cool job. So since then, I've always wanted to do that. Went to school, went to college for professional writing and in English. Got a double major in that.
Where'd you go to school?
Ohio State.
Okay.
And graduated from there in 2013. Started freelancing a little bit for kind of the papers around here, the News Journal, Telegraph Forum over in Bucyrus. 2015 rolls around and I get a full-time gig at the Bucyrus Telegraph Forum, where I spent about a year and a half covering the good Colonel Crawford basketball teams over there. That was an exceptional year of basketball when Buckeye Central had Grant Loy and Wynford had some really good teams. So I spent about a year and a half there. Went to Norwalk at the Reflector. Worked there for a year. Really enjoyed it just because I was kind of back in the Firelands Conference, back home, kind of where I grew up. Was able to cover Plymouth a little bit. I loved the area, loved the kids, loved the coaches. Just didn't really care for the job. I was the sports editor now, so like everything was on my plate. And it was just a lot of long nights and long weekends. And just kind of, suffered through that year and kind of got done with it. And I actually left the profession for about 5-6 months before I landed a job at the Mansfield News Journal, and been there ever since. That's kind of where I always wanted to be, and I'm super happy where I'm at.
Well, I mean, from the standpoint, I think people in this area are glad you're here.
Yeah.
I guess, I remember when I first started coaching, they had like 4 sports writers that, teams were covered every night they played, and then we went through a lull there where it didn't seem like we got much, and now we're kind of back that, you're doing a job and really highlighting not just basketball, but just neat stories throughout. Yeah. So as a coach, when I got into coaching, I've said this many times, like my high school coach was a big influence on me, and Coach Gail Doherty and Joe Campoli at Northern were big influences. And then, as I was growing up, Bob Knight was kind of the guy, so that was influence. But then as you continue coaching, you kind of, you would follow people, like people brought up Coach K, Jay Wright, and even guys maybe you haven't heard of, but you try to steal stuff. But I guess being a sports writer, is there anybody like that you, I guess, maybe try to model your writing after, or has really influenced you in what you do?
Absolutely. And it's mostly the local guys that are around here. I don't read a ton of national stuff. I kind of stay away from the kind of the bigger picture stuff just because I feel like you can get that information anywhere. But, John Spencer, who is an absolute legend, who I get to work with him still a little bit here and there. He influenced me a lot. Rob McCurdy, as I said. When I was a young writer over at Bucyrus, I scheduled something with Rob to sit down and be like, hey, can you look over this story or look over these stories? Just tell me what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, and just kind of give me that guidance. And he's been a godsend to me, to my career, and I owe him a lot. But working with John Spencer still, I think I model most of my writing after him just because it's super long and super wordy, and people are still scrolling and thinking the story's over, which I still have to work on that. But John is a pro at getting every single detail out of a story. So yeah, really look up to him quite a bit.
Do you ever, like now, like when you write a story, like send it to somebody maybe like John, or go, hey, just look at this and see what you think?
I don't do that very much often. We kind of have like an editor system where we're at now, so they kind of look at it. It's a bunch of people kind of around the country that look at it right now, but I absolutely would if John would be open to that, because there's kind of no better teacher than the guy that knows you and knows your writing.
I mean, I just bring that up because I remember, like, I think when Rob Sheldon got out, I had him come to a practice, I think, or maybe watch us in a game, just said, hey, can you, and when I retired, I was going through all the stuff I had, and I had like a folder, a Wynford folder, and I remember I pulled this out. It was like, the first thing was like, hey man, you might be as good as I've seen you defensively in the past few years. He goes, but there was like, what the heck are you guys doing offensively? And it was like, like 10 things of what I needed to correct. So I think that's always interesting. So you've been a sports writer, but so what's what do you enjoy most about it?
Just kind of being out in the community and being with the kids and highlighting the kids, because I know how it felt to be one of those kids that were highlighted in the paper, so I just kind of want to pass that on. That's my all-time favorite thing, is just kind of promoting kids and coaches and making sure that their successes are recognized, and people, even if there's only a couple people that read it, it at least gets it in front of their faces. Because they work really hard. They're student athletes. They have a lot on their plate as teenagers who are trying to figure out their lives with what's next for college. And anytime you can say, hey, this guy saw something in me and highlighted that. I mean, that's the highlight of my career is highlighting those kids and their accomplishments. I went to the museum in Washington, D.C. It's been maybe 3-4 years ago, and they have it's a big museum of just kind of the world events that have happened in history, and then off in the corner they have like this little sports section where you can kind of go in and watch a little film, and it's just like a 2-minute little jog around. And on the wall it said, if you want to see a person's failures, read the front page. If you want to see someone's successes, flip to the sports page. So that's kind of that's how I've always kind of approached the job. There's a lot of negativity in the world, but sports has that high priority.
As I've always asked coaches, then the favorite part, flip the coin. What's a least favorite part of being a sports writer?
Least favorite part might be after games. I love going to games, and I love watching them, and I love talking to kids. But then after the game, it's like, people think that you just go home and you're done. And, as coaches, you kind of know you're not done for another 3 or 4 hours. You got to write, you got to upload pictures, you got to do a whole lot of things. So it's a lot of late nights, and it's usually on Friday and Saturday night when you
So typically, like if you do a game, like you did the Lucas game last night.
Yeah.
So typically, maybe describe like what do you do? What's that process, and like how long it takes you?
So I got home from the Lucas game probably maybe 9:30ish, I think, and sat down and turned on my recorder and transcribed all the interviews, which I interviewed 3 different people, so it takes a little while. That's the longest part of the night is transcribing interviews and making sure you get kind of quotes where you want them and correct. Then you just kind of build your story from there. So I sat down and wrote my story. Waited for the photos to come in. Luckily, I didn't have to take my own pictures last night, or it would have been a longer night. Eric Marshall helps me out a ton with that. So got the pictures in, loaded those up, kind of built how I wanted the story to look online, published it, filed it away to whoever needed to read it, and shared it on social media. And then I went back and tracked down all the results from everywhere else, all the other games, because I have a running scoreboard where you can find all the scores. So tracked down those, typed all those up. I mean, it's a long process. Probably around midnight I finished up, which is an early night, an earlier night than normal. On football Friday nights, I usually punch out around 3 a.m. It takes a long time just to kind of round up everything else because it has to be kind of that night too.
So do you have like a deadline you have to meet at a certain time to get articles in now or not?
Not necessarily.
Like you used to, I mean, like,
yeah.
probably when you first started, you did.
When I first started, it was like, like 9:30 p.m. We had
Right.
to have something turned around for the next day's paper. But now we print 2 days later. So like our deadline is like noon the following day. So it's kind of old news when it gets in, but you
but
read
no,
it right
still,
away online.
it still covers. I mean, I just asked that because you remember Bob Fisher, bless his soul.
Absolutely.
He wrote part-time and he used to cover us a lot. And I think at one time we won like 17 games in a row when he covered us. So anytime he walked in, we were like, yeah. And then I remember like a game would end if it went to an overtime or something. He had to get it in by a certain time, and he would go, hey, John, I'm just going to put a couple quotes in. And I wouldn't have said, so the next day I'm reading that this is what Coach Balogh said.
Right,
He was always right on. He was really good.
Yeah.
As a sports writer, you've done a lot of different things in a short amount of time. So one of the things, I think I talked to you about this last night was, I came across the thing where Nick Saban, it was entitled Tell Me a Story, and Saban kind of told a story about how a lesson he learned as a 15-year-old when he was coaching. So going to kind of turn it to you, and maybe if you got a couple stories that would maybe our people would enjoy. So tell us a story.
It's being in a sports writing position and going to kind of all these events, you kind of run across some funny things, and growing up in the community, you make those relationships. So I probably shouldn't say it now, but whatever. I'm not going to get fired for it. But back when I was a freelancer at the News Journal, I got to follow Plymouth around for a little while. That's when they had a really, really good team. They're making a long tournament run, and covered them in some games. But I knew Troy Keane really well. He grew up across the street from me. I've known his family. I've known him since I was born, and all the neighborhood kids would come to our driveway because we had one of the only hoops on the street, and they would all play. And I was, just a little 3-year-old kid just sitting there watching them. But he was coach of Plymouth in that time, and I would interview him after the games, and we knew each other really well. And he was like after a little bit, he just said, you know what, just don't make me say anything stupid, and don't make the other team look bad. Put in whatever you want. So I was actually, like Bob Fisher, was creating some quotes for Troy Keane and kind of the biggest games in those schools' history. So
who was that? Was that Carissa Thompson or somebody? Who was that said she made up stuff?
Right, yeah, on the sidelines. So that was when I was a freelancer. I wasn't full-time then, so I'm not liable
we can't go
for that.
back.
Right. And then, I get to go to a lot of games with my dad now. He's retired, and, he comes with me to quite a few. We went to the Colonel Crawford regional game a couple years ago, I think, when they played OG in the regional.
Oh, yeah, at Bowling Green.
Yeah, over at Bowling Green. And, I used the media entrance. He bought a ticket, but he didn't want to have to go all the way around. So I was like, just come with me. Maybe they'll let you in. And I had assigned a photographer to go to that game, but he couldn't go. So when I walked in, I was like, this is so-and-so. And he's got a media pass right there. So he was like, he just grabbed his media pass, put it on. He was sitting with me in the press row. So, I've got him into quite a few games that way too. So it's, just enjoy that part, just taking my dad everywhere we go.
Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that appreciate the work that you do and continue to do that. So kind of next on the docket, I brought you in that girls tournament starts next week.
Yeah,
so we were going to kind of try to take a look at some of the brackets of the tournament. So I don't know we can begin with maybe the Division 4s, but one of the best Division 4 teams in the state that we kind of cover in this area is Loudonville.
Yeah.
In looking at their bracket there in the Northeast, looks like they got a pretty good run to get into the regional.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you had a chance to see them play or.
I haven't, but just kind of being around the game, I follow them quite. Follow anybody who's doing well quite a bit. Corey Vermillion. I talked to Scott Sellers about her. I talked to Mansfield Seniors coach about her, and they're all just like, she is legit. I mean, she is one of a kind. So, that's going to be a fun run for them. And I think if they get out of that district, I think their regional even getting to the probably regional final looks like a pretty good possibility
and then
there for them too.
They match up with Richmond Heights. I talked to Tyler Bates last night on the phone. He had some questions, and he said he was seeing Richmond Heights, I think, for the 4th time. So,
right. Yeah.
So as coaches, we're always trying to play that step ahead.
Yeah.
But let's take a look at that Division IV girls district, and as we kind of take a look at that, I guess it's kind of the one thing that I guess kind of interesting to me was that the 2, 3, and 4 seeds all took byes, and then the best team, Danbury Lakeside, the one decided to play. I'm always interested to maybe see your opinion of what you feel about teams playing, deciding to play or not to play.
As a player, I think I would want to be on the court.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I think it was my junior year. We lost in the sectional final. We were the number 1 seed and lost in the sectional final to Lucas. We took a bye, and we were kind of, it was just kind of a weird stretch of just off days where we were practicing, we were beating up on each other, we were annoying each other, just being around each other all the time, and rather go out and try and beat up on somebody else. But it's kind of a coach's preference. I always trust what a coach does.
Well, and it was interesting as I got later in coaching, a lot of times I would not necessarily sit with the whole team, but especially if you had seniors that you really trusted, would sit down and say, hey, even before we went to the draw, we'd go, hey, that's looking like, we're going to choose between these 2 teams to go at, what do you want to do? And, in most cases, I think you're right. They would say, hey, we would love to play on Tuesday and play on Friday. So that's interesting. But, Danbury looks like the best team in that. So let's take a look at the Division III, which I think that's going to be really interesting at Shelby because you have some really great matchups. The first, if you take a look there at the top, we have Wynford matching up with Bucyrus. And it's a game that probably 3 weeks ago now. I mean, Wynford had been playing really well, and Bucyrus knocked them off. And then if Wynford would win that, they get to match up with Colonel Crawford, a team that they knocked off.
Right.
So I think that's really interesting. But I think the team I think in that upper bracket that I think has a chance to really make a run is Clear Fork.
Yeah, I think Clear Fork is playing really, really, really well right now. But yeah, like talk about that little top half there. I mean, that's a Crawford County sports writer's dream right there in that situation. You get all that. So, and Wynford, has a really young team and is really good. Colonel Crawford obviously has been playing well, but yeah, I think.
Well, and the people in the N10 have just kind of been beating up on each other in the second half of this season.
Right. But yeah, Clear Fork, I mean, the way it kind of shook out, it was almost like everybody thought Clear Fork would be the 2 seed because you got, the 10 had to go there, the 9 decided, we're going to play them in the sectional final. The kind of a 2 lower seeds there. So, but I think Clear Fork. And if I was betting, I think I would take them to a district final to play.
And then you got to play
Margaretta.
Probably play Margaretta if everything plays out. And I think Margaretta just continue to move up in the AP poll. And I mean, team that brought a lot back from last year, team that got to the Final Four. Both boys and girls are having great years. And then let's take a look at the Division II bracket. And kind of much like the boys, I think that Division II bracket's going to be loaded.
Yeah.
You have Mansfield Senior matching up with Ontario at the top. And then I think you brought this up, and I'll let you talk a little bit about it. But, Port Clinton and Mansfield win. That's an interesting matchup.
That's going to be a very, very good matchup, I think. I mean, that top bracket, I feel like there's going to be some really good sectional final games. Port Clinton, you guys mentioned DC Lenore.
Yep.
She can pop off for 25 on any given night.
And I think that's one of the things in the tournament. Many times you see those teams that have that really good player, they just kind of rise to the top and the game goes. And she has a lot of experience, playing in the tournament.
Yeah, and I mean, senior high, they play some really, really great defense. and they're kind of finding their footing here lately. Offensively, they started out like gangbusters offensively, and then kind of hit a lull in the middle of the season where they weren't, I think they had like 5 or 6 straight games where they didn't score over 50 points. They kind of turned it around lately. So,
and then the bottom part of that bracket's interesting too, because you have Shelby, who was the 3, so they chose to go up. But then the other interesting part is Toledo Central Catholic's at 6.
Yeah. So that's an interesting story.
Well, you want to tell the story?
Yeah, I will. But I can understand where Shelby goes there because they only lost the senior by 2.
Right.
So I think they kind of like that matchup better than maybe going against Bellevue. But yeah, Central Catholic didn't show up for the draw.
Well, my understanding was they couldn't. It's done by Zoom or whatever.
Right.
They couldn't get in.
Okay.
And then they were calling, and the tournament director said, "We're going with the draw." And then somebody called me and asked me, and I said, "Well, why didn't you just go on the phone call?" And what was Natalie? She goes, "I don't know why they didn't."
Right.
So actually, then I think I talked to the Northwest District Director, Kevin Calvert, and I said, "Hey, can you explain this to me?" Because my understanding, when we did tournament draw, if you didn't show up, you were the last one. He said,
Right.
No. He said they put him on the bracket, but he goes, they put him in the wrong place because the guy said, "Well, they're the 6th seed, they're going on line 6."
Right.
Which he said that's not true. Now they have, like in the background, an NCAA bracketing, and if a team wouldn't show up, they would put them on there where the NCAA bracketing is. So, I mean, the big thing is, you wonder with Toledo Central Catholic, the kind of league schedule the schedule they play, then, but number 2 is they're going to have a long trip to play at Shelby too.
Yeah, Shelby's going to get 2 teams that have to drive probably 2.5 hours to get there. So with Toledo Woodward and Toledo Central Catholic. So that's going to be on their side, but that's going to be a tough little sectional final there.
Well, then we take a look at the bottom of it. You of course, Bellevue, they've won 10 in a row. I think we mentioned they're at Norwalk, I think, tonight. They're playing really well. They would, be the odds-on favorite to come out of that. But the interesting part then, if you go all the way towards the bottom, you have Lexington, who just knocked off Shelby last night. It seems to be playing well. And then you have Norwalk at number 4. That could be an interesting, sectional final there.
Yeah, and Lexington's actually playing really, really well right now. I'm excited to see what they do. They're going to finish the season. They finished the season 500. That's first time since their coach is now Gabby Stover. That was the first time they've done that since she was a player, winning the OCC Player of the Year. So, but what makes this bracket so interesting is just how unfamiliar everybody is, kind of with a lot of different teams.
Yes, yeah.
You're not going to be able to scout a Toledo team, and they're not going to be able to scout you. So it's almost like you're going to see each other for the first time in the biggest game of the year.
Which next week when we talk about the boys, that Division II,
each other. Yeah.
They're going to know. Most of them have played at least once. Some could play 3 times.
Right.
That's going to be interesting. So, as always, as you mentioned earlier, this is a fun part of the year.
Yeah.
And I guess for me now, not coaching, it's even more fun because I'm not getting grayer hair or sleeping less. It's because I don't think people understand the preparation that goes in that most teams try to do to prepare for the tournament. But as I've told kids, when you're having a good season, this span of just a couple weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, and if you're fortunate to play in the 4th week, are some of the best memories that you can ever have as a high school player. It's just that special. So thanks again for coming out again today, and it's always good seeing you, and keep doing a good job.
I will.
Welcome back to the Joe Show. I'm Brian Skowronski, OH Report founder, and it's time for maybe the coolest part of the show every single week, your top 10 cuts, all the best plays captured by our cameras and then ordered by yours truly. Here's what we got for you, all the best plays from February 7th through the 13th. Spin them. Here come your top 10 cuts of the week, presented by Buckeye Horizon. Let's begin in the Cub Cave, where Lucas's second all-time leading scorer, Logan Toms, is going to play a trio of defenders like a set of tom-tom drums, plus the sweet sound of a whistle in the bucket. Let's run it back so that you can see Logan get swarmed by a pack of defenders who think that they have Toms boxed in, but he throws it in the spin cycle and drops home the basket to help beat Mansfield Christian for the NBC crown. At number 9, it's Cardington's Warren Garrison. Gonna turn the corner down Main Street and draws a bunch of eyeballs on him to set up Merrick McClure for some easy money. Take a second look and you'll see Garrison sucking the defense like a vacuum and tosses a dust bunny over to McClure, who cashes in for a hoop. Let's head back to Lucas for the closing seconds of the opening half on Saturday, where after a scramble for possession, Willard's going to get the ball to the corner to Mr. Max Dawson, and he knocks down the three here to beat the horn and right in front of the Lucas student section. Watch again as Mad Max sets up deep in the corner. He's going to catch and shoot from a tough angle to help remain perfect on the season. The Flashes 8-0 on the road. Next up, we go inside of the furnace, where Amar Davis gonna spin his way into some trouble, and he gets out of it with the sweet no-look pass to a wide-open Davis Wyszynski, who buries the three. It's even more impressive in slow-mo as Davis draws in the help side defender, whips it around the back, and Wyszynski knocks it down in a blowout win for Mansfield Christian over Fredericktown, who had won 8 straight. At top cut number 6, we're under 30 seconds before the break at Centerburg, and Reuben Holmes jumps in the passing lane for Kip Columbus, and then he's gonna sky for the one-handed jam at the other end of the floor. Let's show you the thunderous flush again that helped the Jaguars overcome a 16-point deficit to win on the road. To the top 5 we go. Mid-Buckeye Conference title on the line at Lucas, and freshman Davion Mack comes up with a monster swat to initiate his own fast break, finishing it off with a strong bucket, plus the foul to tie up the game early on. As we run it back, check out the liftoff by Mack to come away with the swat. He heads off to the races and will eventually use a powerful jump stop to score the and one bucket all the way at the other end. It's crunch time at play number 4. Upper Sandusky trails by 2 in the closing seconds, and somehow the Northern 10 Conference leading scorer Grace Walton gets a clean look, and you already know she's gonna bury it. Great play design by Coach Bent and the Lady Rams, who knocked off Buckeye Central with this clutch trifecta from the junior sniper. It's the return of the Mac to kick off the top 3. Ball gets ping-ponged around, eventually into the hands of Amar Davis, who's going to ascend it ahead to Davion for the smash burger. Max displaying some serious bounce, but how about the lucky bounce after the block shot from Davis, who finds the rock and is going to get it up to Mac for this impressive two-handed flush. Closing seconds of the third quarter at Pleasant would see Sophia Long barely even looking here as she tosses up the buzzer-beating bucket to give Shelby a commanding lead heading into the fourth. Lady Whippets would seal yet another outright MOAC title with a win, riding a big wave of momentum into money time on this offensive rebound and wild putback. But our top cut of the week brings us back to the furnace, where the Mac attack is at it again. Off the defensive board, Davion's going to dribble his way through a pair of defenders and then flies down the lane for the unbelievable tomahawk jam. You gotta see this one in slow-mo to understand how good this really was, as Mac takes off from just inside the foul line and goes skywalking for the amazing dunk, and this fan's reaction, I think, says it all. Those are your top cuts of the week, presented exclusively by Buckeye Horizon. So like I said on the show last week, there's no vote that is necessary for this one. This is just my top 10, my preference of the best plays that we had come in over the last 7 days. But please do get the banter going, some back and forth. Let me know, was that the best play of the week? I certainly think so. That girl in the audience definitely did when you saw her jaw hit the ground. But what say you out there in the Twitterverse or YouTube, Facebook, wherever you want to get the debate going? All right, we'll now send it over to Travis Berardi. He's got your area stat leaders.
Time now once again for another edition of our area stat leaders, the top 5 boys and girls points, rebounds, and assist leaders here in North Central Ohio. And with only a week left in the girls and a week and a half left in the boys basketball season, it is coming down to the wire for our champions. We still might have a Triple Crown champion. We might have one on the boys side with some work. We'll just have to find out to see how that works out. But let's get right into it. And as always, ladies first. So let's take a look at the points leaders on the girls side. And just like it has been for the last probably year and a half, Corey Vermilya out in front, 27.6 points per game. Ahead of Kendall Beverly of South Central, she is sitting at 23.2 points per game. And the cool thing is there is a little possibility that those two could meet up in a regional semifinal if Vermilya and company win their Northeast District Championship, and if Beverly and company at South Central can win the Willard District Championship. That'd be quite the matchup between the top 2 scorers in North Central Ohio. At number 3, Kayla Larimore of the Centerburg Lady Trojans at 19.1. Rival Callie Carpenter from Fredericktown right behind her at 18.7 points per game. And Anaya Mitchell of Marion Harding at 15.6. Now let's take a look at the rebounding leaders, and once again, Corey Vermilya right there tied with Grace Lamoureux of South Central, both with 12.1 rebounds per game. Mia Miller of Mohawk sitting just behind them at 11.8 rebounds. Brooke Frombaugh of Wynford sitting at 11 rebounds, and Ava Brown, the sophomore from Lexington, 10.8 rebounds. Shout out Lady Lex upsetting Shelby at home last night. Big win for Lady Lex as they get ready for tournament time. Now to our assist leaders, and as you can see, Vermilya just behind Grace Walton with a chance to become her first ever Triple Crown winner. Walton ahead of her by 0.2 assists, 4.4 assists. Vermilya at 4.2. That could be made up in just one game, the way those two can play. Grace Lamoureux of South Central sitting right behind Vermilya at 4.1. Abigail Hardwick of Hardington Lincoln and Kylie Hess of Danville, both with 3.9 assists. So it's coming down to the wire. Can Vermilya pull it off, or can one of these other girls like Grace Walton or Lamoureux keep her from getting that Triple Crown? Now moving on to the boys' side of things and taking a look at the points leaders, and another small chance at a Triple Crown winner there with Alex Bruscotter, but he's got to have to catch Mad Max Dawson in the points category. Dawson at 25.4 points, Bruscotter at 24.8. Those two will meet in the final game of the regular season, a game you'll see live and free on the OH Report. Maybe that could determine our scoring champion. We'll have to wait and find out. Justice Thompson might have something to say about it. He's just behind them at 23.5 points per game. He has a favorable schedule to finish out the year as well. Carson Smith, 22.3 points per game from River Valley. And then Trey Booker, despite being injured, he did enough during the season that he still sits in fifth at 20.8 points per game. You have to have at least 20.8 points to be in the top 5 on the boys' side. That is just phenomenal. Now on to the rebounding leaders, and Brady Critchbaum of Hillsdale sitting on top with 12 rebounds per game. Hillsdale's got a really good chance of winning a sectional championship this year. They have a favorable path in the tournament to at least do that. Nolan McCullis of the St. Paul Flyers, 10.6 rebounds, helped them upset Crestview for Crestview's lone loss of the season. They have a chance of clinching a tie in the Firelands Conference if they win out. Payne DeGray of Colonel Crawford at 9.8. And third, Aiden Kenny of River Valley in fourth with 9.1. And there's Alex Bruscotter once again at 9 rebounds per game at number 5. Finally, to our assist leaders, Logan Thrapp and Jack Fickus, right 1 and 2. Thrapp from Harding at 7.6 points per game. Jack Fickus of Hillsdale at 7.5, so that's still up for grabs. Bruscotter sitting there in third at 5.8. Amar the Star Davis in fourth at 5.6 assists. And then Chase Ebert of River Valley at 5 assists. River Valley, a very good squad. They have a chance of making some noise in their district tournament. They're the number 2 overall seed in the Central District, and with all these playmakers, they have a really good shot. A lot of these players in our top 5 on each girls and boys side have a shot at making deep tournament runs. That'll wrap it up for this edition. We will have our final edition of the Stat Leaders probably going to be on the podcast, because next week, the final week of the Joe Show. I can't believe it's already come to an end. It's been so much fun doing that. So we'll have the final Country Roads rankings and the final Stat Leaders on the podcast coming up here in a couple of weeks. But next week I will have my second to last edition of the Country Roads rankings right here. But for now, back to you, Mr. Balogh.
On our final segment of the Joe Show tonight, we'll spotlight the top scoring threat in the KMAC, who recently cut down the nets as conference champions for the first time this season. The player is Northmor senior guard Grant Bentley, who joined me on a trip around the arena for an in-depth look at the Golden Knights on-the-floor leader.
We're here with Grant Bentley of the Northmor Knights for this edition of Around the Arena. So Grant, you guys currently sit atop of the KMAC. You're 12-4 overall, having a really good senior season for you.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things maybe that people don't know is a little bit about the adversity that this team has faced as you started the season and kind of proceeded through it. So maybe just talk a little bit about how you guys have handled that adversity, and you as a senior, how you've tried to lead the team through that.
I mean, it's all about just stepping up. I mean, Jax was injured for a little bit. We've had injuries across the board. And those younger guys, those sophomores and juniors that have stepped up, it's really helped us out. So just being able to have them on the team has really been nice.
You know, every player that, whether it's basketball, baseball, golf, you kind of have somebody that maybe's influenced your career, or more than one person that's influenced your career. Who would that person or persons be that would kind of be people that influenced you in your athletic career?
I would honestly say my 2 brothers. I mean, growing up from a young age, you know, as House of Boys, you're playing all the time, and especially as a younger athlete, with them being a couple years older, really helped me push me to be better.
You scored over 1,200 points in your career at Northmor. I think you're the second leading scorer. High school basketball, I've always said in Ohio, is special. What's it meant to play basketball here for the Northmor Knights?
I mean, it's been so special. This has been the best 4 years of my life here. So, I mean, being able to finish out my senior season here is just a dream come true.
Each player, I mean, you've played a lot, had a really good year as a junior, but what do you think you've done better this year from last year as a player?
I mean, I think it's all just about the off-season work. I mean, I don't think there's any one area I've gotten super good in, but it's just coming in, being better every day. That's what it's all about.
What do you enjoy most about playing basketball?
Just being with the team. I mean, the team chemistry we have here, you saw it in practice today. Yep. It's awesome. We have a group of 8, 9 guys that just love playing basketball together.
So when you're not playing basketball, what's your favorite thing to do?
Probably playing golf. I mean, that's my go-to. I love golf, and I'll probably play it for the next 50 years.
Yeah, golf's a good game, a frustrating game, but once you kind of it gets a hold of you, you can't let go of it.
Yeah.
If there's a player, if you would say as far as basketball, I know you golf, play baseball, but as far as a basketball player, is there anybody that you maybe tried to model your game after?
I was a big fan, and I feel like I'm probably not quite there, but similar to D'Angelo Russell when he was at Ohio State. He only played 1 year there, but he was, I mean, great basketball player.
Pre-game meal, do you have a go-to pre-game meal, or you're superstitious with what you eat?
I usually, I get Chipotle before games, but I mean, I switch it up, Wendy's, Chipotle. Probably not the best thing for me, but I've done it for so long, you got to keep going with it.
So if you're not the pre-game meal, but if you're going out to get dinner, what are you going to order?
Just normal dinner?
Yep.
I'm a big pasta guy, big spaghetti, pizza, all that kind of stuff. Big Mexican food guy, I love that, but I can pretty much eat anything.
You played for 4 years. Who's the toughest player that you've ever gone against?
Toughest player? It's got to be Mason Studer. He guarded me, I think, not my freshman year, I wasn't good enough then, but my sophomore year, he guarded me, and it was not a fun game for me. He's an incredible athlete and someone that I've looked up to.
Yeah, he was quite a player, and I think I've had him mentioned a couple times as somebody that people don't like going against.
Yeah.
The best memory you've had so far in your high school career?
I would say probably that Fredericktown game-winning three I had. I think that was my sophomore year. It was a close game, down to the wire, buzzer beater, corner three to end it. So that was really exciting.
Buzzer beaters are always fun.
Yeah, that's how it is.
So here with Around the Arena with Grant Bentley.
Grant and the Golden Knights will celebrate senior night at the Castle on Thursday in the squad's regular season home finale against Loudonville that you can enjoy live and free right here on the OH Report. We'll wrap up tonight with Big Joe's Big School Rankings. I welcome in Brian to judge my list of top 5 boys and girls squads.
I hope I get to judge you harshly, put a little shame on you, Joe. Hit me with it. Who's number 5?
Well, let's go with the girls first. And our girls rankings really haven't changed from 2 weeks ago. At number 5, we've got Port Clinton. The Redskins are currently 14-7. They're in second place in the Bay Division. And they just knocked off Edison. I think the big thing with Port Clinton is they have DC Lanier, who I believe is over 1,600 points in her career. And they will start tournament play as the number 5 seed. They play next Thursday when they host Clyde. So SBC team, I think we got 3 of them in here. They're the first one.
I've seen DC play a couple of times. She's smooth. She's like a guy out there with her ball handles and the way that she can step around defenders. So I'm not surprised to hear she's got 1,600 points. They played Loudonville really tough, and I know they're D4, but that's not your common D4. Maybe got the best player in the state. And they've won 4 or 5. So obviously, what have you done for me lately? It sounds like they're winning a bunch of games, Joe. Who you got ahead of them at number 4?
At number 4, we have the Norwalk Truckers, a program that's had a lot of success over the past few years. They are currently sitting in second place in the Lake Division, just behind Bellevue. However, they just lost to Perkins by 14 last Thursday, but they get to finish up playing against Bellevue tonight with a chance to grab a share of that Lake Division title. So the Truckers are the number 4 seed in the tournament, and they will then have they host, I believe they host Vermilion, and then they would get a rematch with Sandusky Perkins in the sectional finals. So that could be interesting.
Sounds like they got a chance to prove that they belong at number 4 on your list tonight with that win against the Lady Red, if they're able to pull that off. But phenomenal junior class. I know that they've got quite a few contributors, plenty of girls that can score. They don't really have like that primetime player like they did a season ago with Brooklyn Davis, but I still like Norwalk collectively as a team. And with that tournament experience they got last year, obviously I think that bodes well heading into this postseason.
So at number 3, we've got the Whippets of Shelby. And I guess that's maybe the switch from my last poll. I guess I said maybe at the beginning they stayed the same, but I think we switched those 2 teams. Shelby, wrapped up their 6th consecutive MOAC title, going to Pleasant, winning 52-34. They finished conference play at 13-1. However, last night, kind of surprising, went to Lexington, and Lexington knocked off the Whippets. So the Whippets are currently 16-5. They play Willard, I believe, tomorrow night for their regular season final. And then in tournament, their matchup's kind of interesting. They enter as the number 3. They're going to host Rossford, but then on the other side of the bracket, they're likely going to play number 6, Toledo Central Catholic, and that could be an interesting sectional final game.
Yeah, because Coach Land's probably not familiar with TCC, and I know that they'll do an excellent scouting report and they'll be prepared for that matchup if it comes. But really surprised to hear that they lost that Lady Lex, who has been playing better. I know they were kind of on the outside looking in, trying to crack your top 5. Didn't this week, but that one surprised me a bit. But Shelby, obviously, they're a great team. 6 straight MOAC speaks for itself, and with Ramsey starting to emerge here at the end of the year, I feel like that's just another dimension and a new weapon.
At number 2, we have Bellevue. They currently lead the Lake Division of the SBC, 16-5 on the year. They're 8-1 in league play. And as we mentioned just a little bit ago, they travel to Norwalk tonight with the chance to clinch their league championship outright. They've won 10 in a row. As we said, they've got a share of the conference title. They scored 90 points in their last one against Sandusky. And then I think they had a junior guard, Haley Reese, who just reached the 1,000-point scoring mark. So the Redmen are going to enter tournament play as the number 2 seed. They're going to host Toledo Woodward. And it just seems like that Redmond girls program just keeps rolling and rolling every year.
Yeah, Coach Santoro's done an unbelievable job since he's taken over at that program. He's collected a bunch of wins. He's probably averaging 19, 20 wins a season since he took over as the head coach. So they know what they're doing up there. And they got a big girl in the middle, Caitlin Turinsky, 6'3". That's uncommon to have that kind of size to go up against. So I think they're a strong number 2 on this list, Joe. But number 1, I think probably indisputable.
Yeah, I mean, they've kind of been at the top all year, and they stay at the top. Mansfield Senior Tigers, 19-2. 12-1 in the Ohio Cardinal Conference, where they're tied with West Holmes. West Holmes is one of 2 teams that knocked off the Tigers this year. They have a chance to. West Holmes has already clinched part of that. I believe Senior High goes to New Philly on Thursday with a chance to go 13-1 in the conference. Kirsten Bradley just passed 1,000 points. They will play tournament next Thursday when they host Ontario. They're currently in this week's poll, I believe, number 9 in the Division II Associated Press poll, and of course they're the number 1 seed in their district. So it's looking like the Tigers are going to be the favorite to get to that district final, and would be the team that we're going to look at possibly getting out of here to regional play.
Haven't done it in a long time. I think it's been about 20 years since the Tigers have went on to the regionals, but they got the pieces and parts to do it. You're not going to get an argument out of me. They got about 5 kids off the perimeter, excellent ball handlers. They got a big girl in the middle, and Annalise Norris, who she kind of brings that physical presence for them as well. So they're a complete and total team, and I think they're a big favorite probably to get to the regional.
So no dispute on my girls, or?
I don't know, Joe.
Come on, man, I'm good.
It seems pretty reasonable to me. Shelby maybe falling back to number 3 makes sense, coming off of a loss. Bellevue, they've really been playing well, as you outlined, and they've got that 1-2 punch with Reese and Turinsky. So, man, I wish I could poke some holes in it, Joe.
Well,
you
might be able to do with the boys, because boys, we have a few more. So 2 weeks ago, we had Mansfield Senior and River Valley on the outside kind of looking in.
Right.
So let's talk about River Valley.
Okay.
They had won 9 games in a row. They went to Shelby, they lost. And then I believe on Saturday, they lost again to Columbus DeSales.
Yep.
However, they bounced back, scored 100 versus Highland, and then squeaked by Gallion on the road, 51-47. I believe they played North Union last night. I guess maybe I haven't checked that score. I think they won. But they'll wrap up their regular season on Friday. Okay. And they are the number 2 seed in the 22-team Division II Central District. And they won't play until, I believe, Saturday, March the 2nd, when they host Columbus Beechcroft. But, they're a team that's scary, I think, just because offensively they have a lot of power. And Carson Smith's just one of the best players in the area.
Yeah, he's awesome. And I think with Chase Ebert running the point, that they got like 4 different seniors on that team that can catch and shoot at any different position on the floor. They're kind of interchangeable, that modern day basketball. I love what Coach Brown has done with this team. They're on the outside of your top 5, you said?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So let's see who else we have on the outside. So I think 2 weeks ago Bellevue was at number 3. We got them just on the outside. So
Wow.
So they dropped out. They're looking in. The Redmen beat Ontario last night to go 16-4 in a close game, but they lost to Perkins on Friday by 1. And prior to that, they just nipped Upper Sandusky. And I think as we start to take a look at the teams that are in the top 5, you might see why I took them out. But they wrap up their regular season with 2 road games. They got to travel to Sandusky Friday. Tough game there. Then they have travel to Clyde, I believe, next Wednesday. They're the number 4 seed in the district tournament. They took a bye, and they're going to get the matchup with the winner of Ontario and Mansfield Senior in the sectional final.
Little surprised that they've kind of been winning and they drop out of your top 5. 16 wins, nice collection of talent they have there. And what I like most about the Red is that they grind out games. They can win in the 30s. There's not a whole lot of teams that can play that style of ball, and they make you uncomfortable. Sometimes it's uncomfortable as an offensive player to play in that style, but they seem to do it well. So I'm very curious to see who's leapfrogging them into your top 5.
Well, we leapfrog. We put Mansfield Senior at number 5.
TY.
So the TY Tigers, I think they got in because I think of their strength of schedule. So they lost to Shelby at home.
Right.
Then went to Lima Senior on the road, got beat. But then they came back, and they're on a 3-game winning streak. They had a 3-game winning streak. They beat Hartley, the number 4 Division II team in the state. And then they just lost to Troutwood Madison, I think by 3, who's the number 4 ranked team in the 22 teams Southwest North District. So they currently stand at 15-6. They travel to arch rival Madison to wrap up the regular season. Kybe Roan, I think, has been a big spark over the past 2 weeks. And their last game is this Friday. So they're going to have plenty of time to prepare for tournament where they match up with Ontario on that Tuesday, the 27th. And then a win there would put them in the sectional final where they got to travel and play at a tough place in Bellevue on Friday, March the 1st.
Not getting to see the Tigers with my own eyes. I'm not going to push too hard on this here, Joe. I know Kai Evie, he's a great player. He's putting up like 18 a game. They don't really have a number 2 scorer, though. I get sent from Zach the stats after every game, and I'm always curious, and I'm looking. It's always a second guy jumping in there. I don't know that I love that. I like consistency when it comes to on offense. You got the Batman. There's been about 34 different Robins depending on the different games, so that scares me a little bit as they get closer to tournament.
And the thing, I guess, that I liked about them, it just seems like, they beat Hartley. They played a really good Troutwood Madison team. Seems like they're playing better because, Lex pretty much blew them out. Shelby pretty much handled them at home. So they might be hitting their stride here as they get to the end of the season. So at number 4, I have the Willard Flashes. So they're 16-3 and 7-1 in the Bay Division. Have a huge game on Friday as they travel to Margaretta.
Yes.
Currently, interesting. Willard is 9-0 on the road.
Yeah.
So they could go 10-0. A win would put them into tie for first place. Max Dawson, Cam Robinson. Those 2 guys are leading that crew of Joe Bedingfield's guys. Next week they're going to be at home on Tuesday against Vermilion, and then a huge matchup to end the year. They host Shelby next Friday night. The Flashes will play the winner of Tiffin Columbian and Sandusky Perkins on Friday, March the 1st at Willard. So outstanding season so far for the Flashes, but that Division II district we've already talked about is going to be a bear.
Oh, wow. What a meat grinder that is. They got 3 of the top 10 teams in the state playing in there. Willard just jumped into the top 10 at number 10 this week, I noticed. And it might be recency bias because I just seen them on Saturday put it on Lucas at the Cup Cave, a place where they hadn't lost. And matter of fact, they've only lost 3 times there over the last 3 seasons. 2 of those are against Willard. Max Dawson blew me away with the style he has, the pace that he can push the ball at, and how good he is at shooting. I knew he was good, but I haven't seen him in a little while. So to get another opportunity to actually watch the dude in person, he's unbelievable. I'll have to see who's in your top 3.
And he makes everybody around him better.
Absolutely.
That's
he's
key.
a leader.
So the next 3 teams, I think you could probably put them in any order that you want. So This is the order I put them in. At number 3, I have Sandusky. They're currently 17-1 on an 11-game win streak. Their only loss of the season was back on December the 29th to Toledo Whitmer, one of the best D1 teams in Northwest Ohio. They clinched their 5th championship in 7 years in the SVC. They're high flying. They're the number 3 team in the 20-team Division I Northwest District, right behind Findlay and Whitmer. They get to play at home in the sectional finals when they match up on the 1st of March with the winner of Lima Senior and Madison. So that could be interesting as far as when they get to that point. But Sandusky having another great year. I'm sure that everybody in Division II is glad they're in Division I this year. Yeah. And Sandusky might even be glad they're in Division I with the lineup that we have in that Division II district.
I just love their style of play, how they get after you defensively, and they use that more as their offense than they actually do in that half-court set. They just suffocate you. They try to run all the time. I haven't seen him this year, but I remember Jason Henlin from a season ago. He's, I think, brought his points per game total up about 8 points this year. So obviously he's matured quite a bit. And they've got 4 dudes, I think, averaging more than 11 points per game. So they can really score the basketball, Joe. This is a scary team.
Well, when you have more than 1 or 2 guys that score, if you put 5 guys on the floor to score, that's really hard to defend. And then I think, as you mentioned, how hard they play is a key. And number 2, kind of moving up, are the Shelby Whippets. Currently 13-0 in the MOAC, and get a chance to go undefeated Friday when Pleasant comes into Shelby. Overall, they're 17-2. They're on an 11-game win streak that includes wins over River Valley and a huge win on Saturday over to Ottawa Glandorf when they beat Findlay, the number 1 ranked RPI team in the Division I Northwest District.
Right.
You know, Bruscotter's been great all year long. Casey Lance has been solid, but I think the guy that's kind of really stepped up here in the last couple weeks is Isaiah Ramsey. He just seems to be playing with more confidence than maybe he's played with in his entire career. So the Whippets, they play Upper Sandusky at home this Saturday. Then they travel to Willard next Friday for a contest. And that's going to be like a district final game, but it's only going to be a regular season game. So the good thing is for either team, if you lose, you still got the tournament, but that's going to be an interesting atmosphere over there next Friday night.
Yeah, what a rivalry game that is, too. To have that saved for the end of the season, that's going to be such a fantastic atmosphere there. I was on record, Travis and I talked on the podcast, we had Coach Galloway on. I think they're the favorite to win the Division II district, even though I know we were going with the number 1 team now, then maybe they are. But because of that collection of senior talent that they have, these kids have grown up in the program. They got 3 multi-year starters. Alex Bruscotter's been playing since he was a freshman. He's a giant out there. He almost looks unguardable at times. And then Braden DeVito didn't even play in that game against Findlay. He'd probably be the leading scorer for most teams around the area. They don't even need him to score. They have that many weapons on the team. So I love everything about the Shelby program and how they play, all the leadership out on the floor. So to me, they're the number 1 team in the area. But I know the head-to-head matters, Joe.
Yeah,
and that's why this team's number 1.
And that's probably right. And it's hard to, I mean, that was a big consideration on my part. But you know, Lex has been at the top, kind of held that spot.
Sure.
They're 19-1, 13-0 in the conference.
Yeah.
Can go undefeated in the OCC when they travel to Mount Vernon, which is not an easy place to play. And then of course they turn around and they play OG with Colin White on Saturday at Lex. To end their regular season. So that's, as we've discussed, I think over the past 2 weeks, that's interesting because they don't play tournament again until March the 1st.
Yeah.
But kind of talking with them, Shelby has great balance. Shelby a little bit older, Lex great balance, a little bit younger, but I think Elijah Hudson's been playing really well the last 2 weeks. Talked to a couple guys that saw him play at senior high, and they said he was the best player on the floor that night. So. Yeah. If he's playing well at 6'8", that's another dimension that you got to defend with Lex.
It's really hard to argue. I mean, they're a pretty physical bunch too. Even that set of sophomores that they have with Caudill's pretty bulky guy. Obviously, we know Fogel's got some good size, and Seven just elite acceleration. So. I see what you're saying, how the top 3 could kind of be interchangeable, because you look at what Sandusky's been able to do in terms of their overall resume, that's pretty solid. So to be at number 3 on your list, I get it. Shelby to me is the best team in the area, but Lexington, you can make a strong case. So, man, Joe, you had a tough job. I don't know how you do it.
It's tough, but somebody's got to do the job, Brian. and you put me in charge of it, so we're good.
All right, so Big Joe's Big 5. I think you've done it again. And then even Willard, too. They're coming on so strong. Man.
Yeah, there's going to be, it's going to be interesting and kind of sad because in a couple weeks there's going to be 3 really good teams that aren't going to get out of this. And probably if you start looking at that whole regional, the district that they face, those 4 teams might be as good or better than the top team that's coming out of that district.
How about that?
Solid district as always that Division II's been for many years.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Solid list, Joe.
Okay, thank you. That's going to do it for tonight's episode, and we've only got one more on the way for the regular season. So enjoy the love and basketball while it's here, and make the most of what's left on this Valentine's Day.